I was just going to record my voice to remember what to say. Oh, I want to give accolades to Arizona MVD. Just how simple the website was. I know everybody bitches about the DMV, as some people call it. But they deserve. Here, I'm pointing at trash, but they're not trash. I'm just not showing my face on that. That's a horrible angle. So, yeah, I need to shave. Um, and I also wanted to make a video. Not right now, not like this. I guess I could just be honest, but it's interesting putting your best foot forward, right? Um, it's smoke and mirrors with a lot of things, right? Suits and ties, things like that. Maybe showing someone who how they are in their element is what you should look at when you hire somebody. You know, um, not really looking at the camera. Anyway, it's just interesting. I was thinking of like making this video where kind of like a video resume, so someone can see you and hear you, and kind of like if you don't get calls back, they've had the interview, right? So this is the time to sell yourself. Um, but it's kind of bullshit, right? I mean, going to an interview, they want production, you want money, and you're both trying to sell each other. And are you, a company can say, oh, we offer these benefits and stuff like that, and they do. But what makes a company are the people, right? So who are you working for? What kind of attitudes do they have? How is their ego? You know, you're not really going to get all that in an interview. It's going to be revealed through their work, their demeanor with colleagues, and things like that. Um, you can just tell a little bit. You could ask questions like, "Oh, where do you see yourself going?" or "Why'd you pick this company?" or blah 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 blah. It's the same thing. Well, why'd you pick me? Like you need production, and people go into interviews thinking, "I got to get this job." Like, if I'm at a place, it's because I want to be there. I find it interesting. It doesn't even matter if it's a fucking restaurant or real estate company, let's tech companies, whatever it is. There's a lot of really interesting things out there. So there's it's unfortunate that people do things they're uninterested in. I find analyzing data interesting. I find numbers interesting. I'm not like a accountant or anything like that, but I find like cross-referencing things, finding anomalies, things like that. I like testing tech. I like writing reports. I like auditing. There's so many things that I enjoy doing, and I've been able to do all of those things basically for the last 20 years. But what I've been doing is all these independent tasks, maybe working with people, but they don't know what I'm doing, that I'm actually working or whatever, because I'm maybe auditing or observing or whatever it is, different fields of specialties and things like that. So people behave differently in certain environments, especially if you're observing a alleged hostile work environment. So they put on a show, and you think, well, someone under here is under duress, you know. And when you see people peeking around the corner, and and you're just observing, asking questions, how you're treated, um, but you can't get all that in an interview. What is the work environment truly like? Unless you have a friend there, somebody that you know, and they're like, oh yeah, they're hiring, you should come, it's great, I love it, and they love it because they're your friend, and they say, hey, guess what, I love my job, and they tell you all the time. You're like, shut up, man. you know um, but um, it's just interesting. So I was thinking, well, make this video resume and put my best self forward. So clean up, shave, so I look 20 years younger. Someone there? And because I'm 53 and I'm definitely facing ageism, which is fine. I mean, well, it's not fine. It's like who's most capable. And these aren't like rocket science jobs. Like I couldn't do rocket science. I could learn it, I'm sure. I've done well when I study something. But it's not something that truly interests me. I prefer to be an observer of that. I find it fascinating though, and I'm glad people enjoy doing that. It's just I think I need quick, faster results, like like gratification. Oh, that's you on the chair. Jesus. CG, and he slips in the chair, so you hear him scratching all the time. So anyway, so what's someone like when they're not around the company? When they're not, are they the same person? You go have a few drinks with them, and all of a sudden they get friggin' angry, or they're a little loose, or they just tell everyone's gossip, or they're kind of toxic, or whatever it is, right? You're definitely not going to get that in an interview. You can go look at social media and stuff like that. I think a good human resource manager would. If you looked at mine, say, oh yeah, he definitely leans one way. And it's called reasonable. I'm just into being reasonable. I'm not in the mindset that everything is this way or that way. I think every instance needs to be evaluated. You look at the information that you have from all sides, all parties, and then you make decisions based on that. I'm not a very quick to judge person. I'm very judgmental. I make observations and I comment on them, but they're not, they're very obvious things. So, but as far as, like someone's getting in trouble for something, I want to have all the information. I just don't assume a teacher's right when they complain about my daughter. And I don't, I've never been like that. And I always fight for her, and then everything's revealed. And I don't think I've ever been wrong because she's done wrong things. It's just how they handle it, right? They're people. They're not these subordinates. And so, and they're learning life. And so how you deal with situations that don't quite work to the status quo, you deal with it delicately, and you don't shame people, and there's just ways to do it. My daughter's a straight A student, and she's created her own work ethic from however it's within her. I've never forced her to work hard. I just say, do your best. And she finds herself bored. So she does a lot of other things. But anyway, you should know about people's home lives, right? So, and that's why my life has been pretty much independent for the last 20 years, is because I've been a few years before that. Well, I shouldn't say 20. Well, I've been, geez, time flies. Maybe it's 18 years. And I had to be around for my daughter because I was raising her mostly by myself. It was very complicated, and she was one of four, the last one, and she survived. So I wasn't really concerned with careers and things like that. My whole focus in life was raising my daughter to know she was loved and be there for her always, like, and it was almost always. In the beginning it was tough because there was court. So but I've always been available, and we've worked to a point where now it's amicable, and she's 15, and she likes going to her mom's, and so we've got a nice arrangement now, and it frees me up to do other things. She's still with me, but she's also doing her own things. So I'd like to get back into a team environment. So that's what I'm actually looking for. Just I like working with people. I like learning. I like I need to be in a place where there's problems that need to be solved. It doesn't matter what kind of problem. Like every business has a problem, whether it's getting product to customer, or serving, or whatever it is, providing whatever service. The problem is doing it effectively, so everyone's happy and you make money. So anyway, I was just thinking, do I do a polished version of me, or do I submit this video? I don't think I should with the dog interruption and stuff, but where's my background? I'm actually in the hot water. We live in an old house in Phoenix and Coronado, and my wife is very has has all the closet space and the office and stuff, which is, I'm okay. I'm a minimalist, even though this place seems like otherwise this could all fit in a few boxes. So, but yeah, so I'm in a hot water room that I've turned into an office. Real quick view. Oh, and I got Booker behind me. That's my daughter's old shirt. She doesn't need it anymore. Yeah, so maybe I post this video and then you can tell me if I should polish myself up. Maybe I should show a polished version of me first, so it's better to make a decision with all the information. I could post a picture of me polished up. I think I still have a little scruff though. If I shave, it's like 10 years. That would make me 15. Not quite. Jesus, I'm close to 4 times that. Anyway, I could do so much stuff. It's crazy, and let's say that, okay, I do post this video, so we'll do this part 2, because now this is me selling myself in the moment, in the same energy, not trying to whatever. So my experience, and I'm hoping I put this out there, and if there's something in here in what I say that resonates with you, like, hey, yeah, I could work with that guy, something like that, then yeah, drop me a line. I'm not looking to get wealthy from anybody out there. I got my own things I'm working on. So, but I just need to work with somebody, even if it's like telework, but you're communicating, you build a rapport, you laugh, you suffer, because nothing ever works the way you intend to. Unless, of course, you're just a drone. But not a flying drone. Anyway, so I'll just start at the beginning and kind of work my way to now. Actually, the last 18 years, before that, I worked at this kind of a real estate company, but I was a contractor there. And all I was really doing was kind of some marketing, but it was like during the crash. It was like right before the crash started. So it was like I had come over from mortgages, and I hadn't done a lot of mortgages. I went and traveled. I went and saw my sister in Ecuador, and I went to Japan, and I was just, I traveled. And when I came back, it was like, oh man, went to Australia, went to New Zealand. So it was like I was enjoying life. That's what's important to me. I just love to travel all the time. That would just be the bomb. I don't need a lot of money. I just want to travel. I don't want to be a journalist in a war-torn country or anything like that. I want to travel and just enjoy life, and somehow contribute and help other people enjoy their lives, or give back, and more than I take, kind of thing. So let's just see. So the last 18 years, in order to, a little bit before I was contracting, but since my daughter was born, I had one job with the Census Bureau during the 2010 census, and that was just like a short-term gig. I actually became so efficient, and I got our team so efficient. I had scored highest on the tests, but someone had was there longer, and they're going, we're going to give her the full-time position, and I never even knew they were giving one away. And they said, we're really sorry because you're amazing, because we were 4 months ahead of schedule, 3 to 4 months. And so it was like, that sucked for a lot of other people. I was so sick of that job. I would have taken that job. Kristen, her name was. She was really sweet. She was a good lady. I think her kids went to Notre Dame or something like that. So anyway, so it was just like, no, I had no intention of working at the census full time. I appreciate the opportunity though, and I did really good at it. I learned the equipment. It was equipment they had specially made, and then they would never use again. And it was archaic. It was kind of like a one of those Palm Pilots on steroids, and the lighting was horrible. You can see in the light. We're in Arizona, right? And yeah, I mean, 3 to 4 months where people were counting on that work, and they said, hey guys, you've done such a great job, and I was doing extra things to make us more efficient. I didn't have to, but when I would go home, I'd like create reports and just efficiency and say, this is the way to do this. And I didn't realize, we would be canned for doing such a good job with nothing, no bonus check, nothing. That's just, the government takes, they don't give back. So, but everyone we worked with was nice. And yeah, so all of us got canned but one. But we expected it, just not so soon. And other than that, I worked as a search engine evaluator for a large search engine. I signed everything I'm talking about now. I've signed NDAs with, and they're kind of perpetual, so it's not temporary. Some of the tech you're using now wasn't available when I was working with it. And I'm not a creator. I'm all I would do is like I test things. I'm just a user, and then you're looking for bugs, interface issues, all these things, and you get an interesting thing. You get paid for bugs, so not always. But if you can find bugs and you're the first one to report the bug and then you verify a bug and all these things, there's like all these little kickers. And so it's I wasn't that much into that because I had my daughter, so I wasn't like some of these people that they can just sit at their computer for 8 hours. Hey, sorry buddy, you gotta watch it. Sorry bud. Anyway, yeah, so you would test, you write reports, fill out a form, write the bug report if there's a bug report. Sometimes use Charles Proxy, so they know exactly what was going on at the time of the whatever happened. And it's like down to the millisecond. It's crazy, and all the functions that are going on. Whether you use mostly it's tablet and phone stuff. A lot of other things they use out there, but I can't even say. So there was a lot of that all that stuff was home. Things would be shipped to me. I would, work, test them and do whatever. And I did really good, but there's a lot of room to escalate, so you're not necessarily a tester or whatever, but that requires time, and I just needed it. I just was set like, okay, this is what I need to do, because when my daughter's at school and when she's not at school, but now even when she's home, she's just talking to her friends and stuff, and I remember that, so I just have a little more freedom. And I've also like audited for brand compliance. I've audited for service. Sorry, and done a lot of audit. So it's a lot of report writing, compliance with banks, like equal fair housing, equal lending, all that kind of stuff. Real estate agents. I do have a real estate license, but I've never done a transaction. I was never really a big fan of the commission setup. So if I'm not a real estate agent, like that's not in my blood. I legally I am, but I'm not a realtor, and I grew up around it since I was a child, and not a fan. I do love real estate in the sense I like properties. I like looking at value. I like helping people make good decisions. Like the best kind of agent I could be would be a dual agent here in Arizona, where I could work with both buyer and seller to come to a contract that has no surprises, because a lot of people, all houses have secrets, and all buyers want the best deal. And if you can teach people, and if it's investment, that's different. I'm talking like, first time home buyers and things like that, not investors. That's a whole different mindset. But someone like build up their first home and now they're moving on and they got a lot of pride in it, but there's a few flaws or there's this and that. They're kind of scared because they think it'll affect the value. That's natural, and that's why you have your disclosures. But a lot of people lie. They do. That's the truth. The truth is people lie a lot. And so then you're living in the house and then you see these things that weren't in the disclosures, and that's happened to us. And we did our due diligence and had inspections and stuff like that. But then you find out that, and you see even years later, because you go to look at things, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is horrible. Look at this workmanship. And it's hidden, right? A lot of it's hidden. Or you didn't look that close. And anyway, that's another story. So that's another thing I did. Speaking of inspections, in Canada, I worked for an insurance company, and they basically insured grain elevators, like huge silos, like monstrous ones that could explode like a bomb. The grain dust create such a a fine thing that like you have usually a conveyors at the bottom, conveyors moving stuff up and down and all this stuff, and so there's bearings, and those bearings can get hot and it can ignite the dust. There's other things too, the electrical sparks. So I would start at the head, which is usually on top of the silos, and you'd climb up, and it would be an inclement weather. It'd be a little scary because stuff isn't like super secure. You have a harness and stuff like that. I'm not being stupid, but usually a hard hat would blow off, and so you just like it's falling down 380 feet, and you're just out there exposed in this freezing cold, and you're checking everything you can. You're checking oil levels. You're checking all the belts, bolts. You're checking everything, and you're kind of going through more than like a fire inspector would. This is like, because our intent is to avoid any sort of payout, right, through preventive measures. It's not that we want to avoid a payout after the fact, but we want to go there proactive. We don't charge the customer this. And then we make a list of recommendations. That's where things can kind of get sketchy, because if there's been recommendations made and then something catastrophic or anything happened, well, then they said, well, we made these recommendations. None of the properties that I inspected ever had anything happen to them. And so, but I wasn't there that long because I had to eventually be there for my daughter. And this was a job that required me to be on the road, and I just wasn't happy. And so, they recognized that, so they were really nice, and they I can't remember how they laid me off, but then they gave me a nice severance, and there was nothing like bad about it, but they said just enjoy your daughter, and that was really nice, and that was the whole. I'm getting a little verklempt, verklempt. Because I wasn't happy, and I was fighting for her still, and I think I had just got her or something back, and it was just so good not to leave her again. So so anyway, so I did a lot of inspections. They also did, and then so I would start at the top, work my way down. I wouldn't actually go through the silo, but they have staircases, elevators. There's a lot of like stuff, wire, conduit. You're looking at dust buildup, if they're keeping the place clean, because like you can't just neglect this at all. And then as you go down, of course, it gets worse as you go down. And then you get down to the boot, which is usually below ground level, which is where the conveyors are, and you're going down, and sometimes you can't even touch the ground because there's so much seed and grain, which is not good. You got to be able to touch the ground. And sometimes you can kind of touch the ground, but you're like ankle deep, a little bit deeper, and you're forcing your way to walk around down there, and you can't even see all the bearings, and it's crazy. And then you get in these old wooden ones. I don't know if anybody seen the old wooden grain elevators. They're like really hard to upkeep, and they're tearing them all down. But they are so cool because the wood gets worn over time, and you just see how the grain is just. I was always like, I would love to live in one of those, convert it into a house and move it into like a ranch or something. There must be a delivery guy around. So I was doing that. Then we also did like churches, some little commercial like restaurants. But it was always like preventive. You'd make a list. You'd have to write a detailed report. And then after the report was submitted, then they were told the recommendations. And so for the big companies like Pioneer, Cargill, what was the other one? P&G, Peterson. They all had like so much money that everything was always perfect. We also like checked chemical storage places, especially right before they started prepping, because it's a big farm area. So that was a really interesting job, and writing a lot of reports. So it was pretty much a long day, because you get home to the hotel, or you get back to the hotel, and then you write your reports, and you go to bed, and you wake up, and you go inspect, and you come home, write the reports. But it wasn't stressful. It was just what else are you gonna do, right? You're in these little farm communities and staying in motels. No bad experiences with that job though. It was a good experience. The company, I can say their name, is Windward. And I have an acquaintance, a guy who worked there, and uh, he's in a band called the Northern Royals. I don't know if he'd want me to say his name, so I'm not going to say his name. I just gave it. I don't know which. Yeah, I won't tell you which one he is. Not that you're going to look it up. Anyway, so then I did that. Also framed houses. Did that a lot when I was in my 20s as well. Just a framer. Pulled a little wire, set like we used to have heated floors, so you'd set the flexible pipe for that, and then what else? Just trying to think of that kind of related stuff. I worked as a civilian employee for the Canadian Army when we were retrofitting the hangar with new trusses, and so I was like a trades helper there. That was in my 20s, early 20s. Nearly died in that job because of someone else's negligence, and someone else was like the safety guy, and he nearly killed me. No joke, but that's a different story. I didn't really get him back. Anyway, you can't almost kill somebody, right? I got you back. You almost died. Anyway, and so yeah, we had to set these trusses and brace them and then replace them. It was an interesting job because these trusses, like, you could walk up in them. So you could walk up in the trusses. These were massive trusses made for a B-52 bomber size plane. So this thing was a monster, and they were retrofitting it. And then 5 years later, they had already planned to demolish it. It was just like, you spend the money or you lose it, right? So that was an interesting job. Did that for a while. Then I think I moved to Vancouver and I worked at a porno shop. So that's where I learned retail. I was also a bellman before that. I didn't make it all the way to Vancouver. I was a bellman at a hotel in Banff. I was my first job leaving high school. I was a ski lift operator at a resort in Banff. That was my first job out of high school. In high school, I worked at restaurants and things I was a mover. I'd operated like heavy machinery. Well, not heavy machinery, little backhoes and bobcats and huge forklifts and things like that. My calf would get so sore at the end of the day. It was because it was stick. Anyway, and then landscaping, a lot of summer jobs, things like that. Worked at a chicken farm, delivered papers. But then as I got out of Banff, then go to Vancouver, I did steel stud framing. I worked at the porno shop for like over a year because in Banff I had injured my arm and I couldn't really use my arm well. I couldn't serve because I worked at a restaurant as well in Banff, so I'd been a server, and I wouldn't be able to carry a plate. Like, I couldn't really use my right arm effectively. So I got this job and I saw Help Wanted and I met a good friend there. He wasn't my friend at the time, he was just the manager. So I learned inventory and just cross, making everything work out at the end of the night, like your till and inventory and all that stuff. So it wasn't really complicated. Your till should be what it is, right? You've done a few drops, and I never had access to the safe. I think I drop every $100, and I would just write the drops down. So that's all. You didn't really have to do much except deal with losers, a lot of them. It was a new world to me because anyway, if you know Vancouver, then you might know that it's kind of crazy for a kid who's from the prairies, and working at a porno shop that has peep shows in the back. So to me, I'm an open-minded person, and it didn't bother me. The only thing that bothered me were individuals. So then I did that, and then I moved to White Rock, went to school for a bit. We were living in the West End, my buddy and I. We didn't know it was the gay area, and everyone's thinking we were gay. I was like, it's just an awesome place to live. That's all. Who cares? Jesus Christ. Some people are just so homophobic. It's like, I'm not gay, but fuck, who cares? And we go to gay clubs because they play better music. You could get in easier. That sounds gross. You could get in easier. And there were things that happened there that I was like, okay, I'm kind of over this scene, you know, depending where you went and stuff like that. But it gets pretty raunchy. But then I would go there as a kid with girls, and that was cool. What did I do? Oh, when I did that, I was living in Calgary and I was framing, and then went to White Rock. Went to school for a bit. Was working at the porn a little bit. Then I switched to a plastics company. I started as mixing plastics, so we use a color compound, concentrated compound with whatever resin we're using. And some of the stuff would be known to cause cancer in laboratory animals. It would say stuff was like Dow was like one of the big producers of that, right? And then we had one guy, the scientists in the lab, they would come up with the color mixture, the compound, based on the customer's desire of what color they wanted. And then we had this crazy guy in the powder room, color room, and he was crazy. You'd have to be crazy to work in there because the stuff is very fine, very expensive. Some of it, not the bases, but some stuff was just so crazy expensive and fine. And he'd wear a mask and everything like that. But it was like, no, this stuff's got to be getting in the system. And then I would be a mixer in the beginning, so I'd take the compound he made, I'd add it to the resin, I'd put this in a big hopper, and I'd turn it on, let it do its thing, watch it, monitor it, you know. And then when the color was mixed, then it would be transferred by a hopper into the extruder. The extruder would take the raw material with the color, and then it would heat it up and pass it through the extruder, and it would come out in strands, which then then those strands would go through a cooling bath, and then out of the cooling bath would go into a chopper into another hopper as a fine like pebble. And there was like, you could do different size pebbles and stuff like that. So then eventually I became an extruder operator, and I'd work nights, and I'd work 3 days a week, 14, 14, and 12, and I'd work from like 6:30 to 8:30. And or you know, whatever it was, it was just like, or 6:30 to 6:30. So I had 4 days off a week. It was crazy. And I'm getting paid full pay, and like I was making more money then in 1995 than I've made in a long time. It's crazy. But I also took like 3 months off a year, because the tax bracket in Canada thing, it just was like, you're working those 3 months for free almost. So why would I work them? We already had good vacation, and then they go, you're not getting any vacation pay, and I'm like, yeah, but so I would go down to Arizona and visit my mother or something, and then I moved to extrusion, and all you'd have to do is like clean these little holes. Every now and then you get a little clog, and so one of the strands might not be working that well, so you just fix it and you feed it back in. It's not a big deal. You have to kind of pay attention. There were some, like we'd make this stuff with formaldehyde, and we had to wear like a super ass gas mask. It was like insane. But once it got set up, you could run 500 kilograms without touching it. And there was some other stuff like that. You could just set it up, you fine tune it, you're dealing with temperatures and feed rate and all these things. And then, and the bath, and everything works together. And then you watch it for a bit, and then you go sit in the lab or whatever, especially the formaldehyde. You don't just hang out. You have the bay door open and stuff like that. It's crazy. I pulled the mask off one time and knocked me to the floor. I was like, I had to crawl out. I was snot everywhere. It was just insane. I was like, I didn't really think the mask could have been working that good. I'm like, is this thing even working? And it was like, holy shit. Because I'd never, ever smelled it. I'd smelled, like, I know what the smell is. You smell it when you go into your car, a brand new car. That's formaldehyde. And we also make stuff that would, the little letters on your keyboards, things like that, just the little letter. Or TV cases, or toys. There's a lot of things. So it was an interesting job. And then that was the last job I had in Canada for many years, until I had that inspection job. Also in Canada the second time, which was like 2012, 13, I did framing, I did meat delivery, and I did the inspections. Meat delivery I quit because there was just like, that's a situation, and I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind. Someone's being very inappropriate, and they're trying to do the right thing, but I'm like, why would I stay around here if they're not gonna can them? You know, it's like insane. And like, I just started, you know, so I was just like, yeah, I'll go. You know, you can deal with this freak. Not my problem. Just a little too weird, you know. Like, I'm a fucking grown man with a child. Like, what are you doing? I won't name the name of that company, but it was in the prairies. in Saskatoon. So then from there, I went to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, I worked for two people. I worked for an actor as a personal assistant. I can't name his name because I also have an NDA. He's not like a big time actor, but he's a big time small actor. Like he has small roles. And yeah, but that's all I can really say about that. But what I did for him was I monitored or managed the house, not completely. He had like a maid, but you'd never know it. I mean, it wasn't like he was dirty, but he was a hoarder, and as much as he could be, right? So he had a Scion, the XB, could barely fit that in the garage. So I was able to rearrange the garage so he could park his car in there. Like he couldn't even park his car. Like the thing is tiny. Give me a break. And at the time, I was also trying to do comedy at night, so I would go out to open mics and do comedy. Um, so then I would also he had a stack of credit cards, and I would always be calling like each vendor, so to speak, each bank, and ask what promotions do they have, and if it would be beneficial to switch the balance to or take advantage of that promotion or whatever it was. And so that was like a monthly thing. I'd also cross-reference every single receipt with his credit card bills. Every single receipt. He was very good at keeping receipts and making sure that he wasn't double charged or something was wrong. And I would just make sure. I also managed email lists because he had a huge email list. I dealt with actually when his mother passed away. She was a last of his parents. She was in New York. All the stuff was coming, and so I had to go arrange a place for it. It wasn't going to fit his place, right? It was a full, like, I think 10 foot of a moving van. Not 10 feet, maybe 20 feet. It was a 10 by 10 storage room, and it included like an over 100-year-old Steinway. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. I don't want to say Steinberg. I know that's not right. So Steinway, and this thing had been taken apart, legs off and things like that, wrapped carefully, like it looked like it was taken care of properly, but they wanted to just leave it like that, and I'm like, no, you got to set it up, he needs to inspect it. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it, and they're getting in his face, and this is a big mover guy, and and I'm like, ah, jeez. Because the guy I'm working for, he's scrawny, he's like Kramer but shorter. And so I get in there and I'm in this guy's face and I'm like, if this has to happen, this has to happen, but he goes, I got other customers. I go, right now you have this customer. I don't give a shit about your other customers. That's ridiculous. Call your other customer, say I'm dealing with the first customer, like, give me a break. All you have to do is unwrap it, let us inspect it. Maybe Richard, almost, well, there goes his first name. Shit. Maybe maybe I can bleep that part. No, that's a common name. I don't think I can go on IMDb and see it. So what time? 38:16. Oh shit, 38:16. I'll have to do like parts 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so anyway, almost done. So I also reconciled a lot of things, organized things, repaired things. But it ended not great, unfortunately. Got a little too demanding, and I can tell one, it's not horrible, but it just showed I thought I had a little more value, and I have this thing that, you probably can't see. Anyway, yeah, this light goes on because of sound. Sorry, I just noticed that. It's like lightning. So anyway, he had this house in the hills, and underneath the house there's nothing, right? Just hill, and it's on stilts and stuff. And I'm thinking of another story. So he has rat traps, and this trap had, got a rat, and he rented this place. It wasn't his own place. And he said, hey, would you mind removing that rat? I'll give you $25. Now, I probably would have just removed it anyway. At some point, I would have smelled it and oh shit, this thing needs to get out of here. Honestly, I'm a guy who sees something that needs to be done usually, especially when I'm working for someone. At home, I get a little lazy sometimes. But like right now, I should be working at home. Um, but I'm a good worker, trust me. So I said, well, I didn't really have a time to respond. I didn't really have a time to respond because he just immediately goes, the rat company charges $75, and I don't want to tell the landlord because I don't want him to know how cheap the rent's been. I don't want him looking into anything, you know. And the rent was crazy. Like, I'm not gonna say how much, but it was crazy cheap, like so crazy cheap. And it was it wasn't a big place, so it's not like this LA mansion. So I don't think like, but it was really neat, and it was like 2 bedrooms, 2 bath on the hill. It had a yard, it had the garage. So and then it was like the garage was way down below. It was actually a series of garages, and I think below was actually like used to be the apartment, and that would have been like the owner or something like that, because there was like 8 apartments, and then you'd walk past the apartments, go up all these stairs. So it's kind of a bitch to get to this place, like grocery and like that. You're not driving in the garage into the house. You're driving into the garage, and then you're walking out of the garage. You're putting down the garage door, and then you're walking up the stairs. A lot of stairs. Like, you're not going to be fat if you live there. Kind of stairs. So it's crazy. It's really crazy, but it's a really cool place. And so where was I going? Oh, so I'm like, he's like, yeah, and I don't want the landlord to know. So I'm like, so I'm worth $25. The guy, compared to the $75, and all they're gonna do is toss this shit in the fucking, like, that's what I'm worth to you, like 1/3 of the rat guy. Give me a break. So that kind of, I was like, not a fan. But for the most part, he's very nice. He would, like, you know, he was a very nice guy. But but you can still be nice and not value somebody, right? So I'm like, here I am, can do all this shit, and I'm worth $25 for the rat, you know. Um, I'm like, honestly, it was just because if he hadn't mentioned the other stuff, I just would have done it, and I said I would have just been like, don't worry about it, you know. It was just that it showed I had a 1/3 value. It was just the value thing. And then there was another thing, and it ended bad. But he was honest. He actually sent some things I left there in a box, and yeah. So it was like he means well. He just kind of spoiled. Yeah. Anyway, I can't talk anymore about him. So and then I did my own freelance helping people and stuff like that. And then I because I was still dealing with. I was going back to Phoenix all the time, so I didn't have like a regular job. I also worked for this lady who had started this company in the Palisades. Interesting enough, since it just burned down, her house too. And I lived in the guest house just for a little bit because the lady was crazy. um, and then I ended up back in Phoenix permanently, thank goodness, and got my daughter back. I shouldn't. Well, it's hard to. It's not good to say back, but full time would be a better thing. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult. There was a journey on the way that there's a lot of space in between. So throughout that time, I had done couriering, so a lot of driving. I had done the auditing, which I just did everything because, you know, life is expensive, and when you're fighting for your, you know, kid and stuff like that, it's you know, you got to do what you got to do. So yeah. And then yeah, since then really I just been doing everything on my own, but I know I'm leaving things out. I've worked the main thing, if a company needs me, I pay attention to detail. I'm very good at writing reports, W5. A lot of my reports include timing, tons of observing, cash integrity, you know, just integrity, period. No, I've gotten a few people fired, and it's not my intention. My intention is to always just report what's happened, and I know when you know, but I don't put any emotion into it. It's just information, and so it's up to people to do with what, you know. But they're paying you to do something. You have to do it. You should do a good job, And there's many that I don't do because I just don't agree with the what's going on. There's things almost that are like borderline illegal, and you ask questions and you never get answers. So I just don't work for companies like that. Um, yeah, it's interesting. Like, anyway, I know what's happening everywhere, like recording people and stuff like that. But like when you're observing something else, but other people are getting in there, and you're not a public area, I don't think it's right to just sit there and record. You know, yeah. So anyway, especially if it's public, then yeah, you have the constitutional right to record anything you can see within sight. But on private property, I just don't, even like the hidden mics and things like that. I just feel shady. It's a weird thing because it happens all the time. It happens all the time because someone else is doing it if I'm not doing it. So, because I notice it, because where I look for the work, which is also another reason why I'm looking to work in a team effort where we have like a focused plan, like maybe have like brainstorms. Okay, this is what's going on. We need to, like, when I went to ASU, um, I didn't mention ASU, but I went there. I have like, overall I have over 200 credits in university and college, including my military service credits and the credits. Like I maxed out all my MCIs, Marine Corps Institute, which is like a wide range of topics. I don't think I have any books out here. They're all in my trunk. But there's obviously military ones like guerrilla warfare, but there's like binary code. I took binary code. Like, why? I don't know. It was different. I probably don't remember much of it, but binary code's probably going to be gone soon once quantum computing comes out. I imagine. So, yeah. So I have, and then in ASU specifically, I think I was like 90 some credits. I was like one semester shy, or even, yeah, I think I was only one semester shy, and I had to do my major was screenwriting. Um, I was using my GI Bill, and I wanted to take something I was interested in, and I had taken tons of business. Of all the credits I've taken, like I've taken a lot of stuff, and then I was just like, and it wasn't a lot of screenwriting. Like it's just like theory, really. It's like what works, what doesn't. Um, but it whet my appetite for writing that kind of story, and so that's been like things I do on the side, like writing. Right now, I'm working on a screenplay and a children's book based on a true story that happened in Panama by the canal, on both sides of the canal. So those are things that I'm interested in and that I like to do. And so I eventually, like in that kind of environment, like if you're being creative, making a movie or making a sitcom or anything like that, you're getting it around, and you're bouncing ideas off each other, and you're moving forward with whatever grain of salt you started with, right? Business is like that too. It's an idea. I want to do this, and then you come up with people you collaborate with, and you get ideas to achieve that goal. And maybe the goal changes a little bit, kind of like scripts change, like, hey, it would be really cool if they said this. You're like, oh yeah, that's awesome, especially when people get to know the characters. So I don't know why I'm moving the camera. So that's also what I do, of course. I have a beautiful wife. She's a Spanish interpreter at the federal court. My daughter is one. She's grade 10 now. And yeah, she's like, I just passively smart. Like, everything she does seems very effortless. And like if I was getting the grades she was, it would just like you'd always see a binder open. But to me, I guess I see her laptop open, and I think she's maybe on TikTok, but maybe she's actually probably doing schoolwork. Not on TikTok, yeah, never on her computer. But anyway, it just seems like she does it very effortlessly. No complaints. I've always asking her like, hey, is there anything, she's like, no. I raised her to be that way. I raised her very consciously, in a sense that I knew what I didn't want for her based on my childhood experience, and that would give her what I wanted for her. So to know she's loved, to be supportive, to be there for her, and to show her that she can do it. Like, it all started, as a kid when you're walking, you're like, helping them a little bit, but it's time to let it go. Riding the bike. I remember like one time on the monkey bars, she's like, "Dad, help, help," and I said, "No." And she was really good at the monkey bars, but I said, "Put your foot away." I just showed her what she could do, and once she did it, she's like, "Oh," and so she got, she realized she could think outside the box. Before it was just always hand, hand. And I said, "No, if you're in a spot and you want to turn around the corner, you can use your feet and just make it fun or whatever." And so she would just fly around, "Watch me, Dad." And it was pretty cool. And like even bigger kids, she'd go, "Hey, watch me, I'm better than you." And I said, "No." And then I now had to teach her about being humble, and so I said, "Do you think you," and I always try to put her in someone else's shoes and say, "How do you think it would feel?" And sometimes she's cried. She's, "I didn't mean that." I said, "I know, I'm just making you aware." So our words are powerful, right? And I've said, I've been wrong too. And I always tell her, "You can question me too. It's it's been a pleasure." And there's been challenges, external, internal, you know, um, making sure I deal with challenging situations the most effective way. It's usually never based on emotion unless you're reinforcing love or something like that, being supportive. But if you're upset, you need to get unemotional about it. That's the best way to deal with it because the kids will pick that up. I mean, oh, yeah. I have like two regrets as a parent, and they're both include words. Not just, yeah. And I was humbled, you know, and yeah, so that's, she's amazing. Anyway, this is the end of my. Well, no, I shouldn't end like that. If anybody's made it this far, thank you very much for listening. I hope it was worthwhile and somehow interesting, and that maybe there was something in there that resonated with you, that you say, "Yeah, I could use this guy." I'm very good with my hands. Here, I'll show you something. I built this little casita out here. It's a gloomy day in Phoenix, so I'm not gonna go in because my brother just left, and I'm crying. But yeah. So that's, well, it's just not clean right now. Well, it's not dirty. He's not a dirty person. It's just empty. I made the bed. I washed the sheets. So I built this all by myself. My dad came and helped for a bit. He helped me with the door and the window. And then I have this shower here. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was looking at YouTube videos and stuff, and this toilet here. So I didn't have to get any plumbing. Oh shoot, I gotta fix. So this is an anaerobic digester. All right. This, yeah, I got a little soapy in there. Solar power, a little bit of solar power in here, not completely yet. All those pictures I took. This Antelope Canyon. That's a dead cactus. Well, not a dead cactus, but the inside of a cactus. Really kind of cool. And then that's Horseshoe Bend. And yeah, I took those. And so eventually we'll be using that power inverter, but right now we've got a little TV hooked up. So I knew I was going to put the TV, so it's like at least I have it wired through, but wish I would have thought a little bit more about the wire placement. And then I'll just show you for whatever reason. No, you can't really see it. I have it covered right now, and I have a heater in here. This is an anaerobic digester. You can look them up online. This one's a home biogas. So you can see from here to here, that's all gas. Comes out there. There's a little vent. And then I also have like this water system on demand, which I should turn off, but I'll come do that later. See, I have a little bit of ADHD. I have a million things going on in my head, and yeah. So what was I doing? Oh, well, anyway, that's the anaerobic digester. So what happens is the waste goes in there, or you can use compost kind of stuff. You can't there's certain things you shouldn't put in there. You're starting out with water and manure. It needs to be herbo or carnivore. So I used horse manure. And then what else? Yeah, it took about 2 weeks before the gas went up. So you can actually power a little gas stove, which is actually right down here. But I have an induction burner in there. Just find it safer. That's the reason why, because there's so much wood in there. It's 200 square feet, so it's really technically a shed. It's actually 196 square feet. So, but I built that. So it's things like that. Like I used to make, like things like this. This is a when I was in the Marines. So I would make these paddles for everybody when we left. We're at 3MEF SOTG, small boat platoon. Hoorah. Yeah, I didn't even mention my military service. So that's a lot of different experiences right there. And I got a NAM, got tons of awards in the Marines, got meritoriously promoted twice. There's me in boot camp. I think I'm around here. I don't know. It's been a bit. Yeah. So, and then after the Marines, I served a little over 2 years in Okinawa with the 3MEF SOTG. Should have stayed, but I was thinking of staying in the Marines and like making a career out of it. So I wanted to know what it was life was like in the U.S. I love Japan, and that's why I wish I would have stayed, because I would have just anyway. We look back and ended up in Yuma, and it's close to Phoenix. So, but yeah, I did it. I was a small craft operator in Okinawa, teaching. You can see, I don't know what it says here. Instructor. Can you read that? I don't know. We were actually assistant. I think, I don't know if we were considered the instructor or assistant instructor. But for the coxswain course, which is like clandestine beach operations. And did that. Jumped out a lot of helicopters, drove a lot of boats. Well, not a lot of boats. Drove boats a lot. The Zodiac F470s. Actually, I have a model of one right up there. It's a G.I. Joe F470. It's an awesome replica. I felt very lucky I saw that at Toys R Us back when there was a Toys R Us. So that's how old I am. Apparently they're coming back. Yeah, and then I went to Yuma, and in Yuma I got a Navy Achievement Medal because they'd sent me to a supply, I don't know what you call them, office. And then I didn't really get along with the staff sergeant because he was a crook. And interesting story, I received a coin. I'll probably have it here on my coins. There's my SOTG coin. And then, I don't know, somewhere in here, there's my coxswain badge. There's a coin in there from the base commander in Yuma who was giving me accolades, but when he came to the office, my staff sergeant thought he was there to give me shit. So the joke was on him, because I had reported a different staff sergeant for not upholding the standards of the Marine Corps. It was a simple thing. It should have been very simple. I started out with an email to the dude, hey, I saw these pictures and I think they don't really represent the values and standards. Maybe you should say something or do something. And then his officer starts calling my lieutenant, and it goes all the way up to the fucking base commander. Excuse my French. And I didn't know any of this was going on because I had some emails back and forth. The guy just remained tactful, maintained my bearing, didn't get emotional. I'm very emotional, but when I write, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at, except when I was going through custody stuff. So anyway, the colonel, he was a colonel, and he came in and he's like, "Where's Sergeant Smith?" And then my staff sergeant said, "He's right there." And he goes, "We need more Marines like him." And he gives me a coin, which is cool. And he gives this little speech about what I had been doing because nobody knew that I wasn't telling anybody. I just, I'm not there to make the guy look bad. I'm just asking him to do the right thing. I didn't tell anybody. He's the one who made it worse for himself. You're either right or you're wrong. There's no like, well, my wrong is okay, especially in the military. So, so after that, then my staff sergeant sent me to a warehouse, which was with not the brightest guys. Is that fair to say? That is unfair. Just young. I guess that's it. I was old. I joined when I was 26, so I was like 30. And that's what it is. I'm just thinking about that now. They were just very young, and I had to grow up fast. I lived on my own before I was done high school. So, yeah, that's all it was. They were really good guys. Like, I had no, and they looked up to me, and I didn't see that. I saw them as my peers. I go to work in a place, I don't think that I had seniority, even though I did, and they're like, they're kind of telling me what's going on and stuff like that. And then so I start like, well, where's the manual? Let's just do it by the manual. And I didn't even realize what I was doing because I just thought I was doing my job, right? But I was the first one to do it effectively, I guess, in a while or something. And the lieutenant upstairs, he and I got along really well because, I think I was probably the oldest one there. He couldn't have been. We weren't that much different in age, but I think I was a little older than him. He was from the Naval Academy. Amazing runner, very nice guy, and he wrote me an amazing report, everything I can show. I have a little accolades folder. Yeah, so he wrote me up for the NAM, the Navy Achievement Medal, but I just transformed the warehouse into what it was meant to be. And I just was like, it's like cleaning your room. Put your fucking shoes there, man. That's where they belong. That's all it is. Putting stuff where it belongs, doing inventory, comparing that with your list, and saying, okay, we're minus theme, or why do we have so many of these? Or there's nothing saying anything about these NVGs, And then I did a really good job there, and then that staff sergeant kicked me out and sent me to another unit, which was way better. It was so awesome. I wish I'd been there the whole time. I was conflicting. The air base is different too, especially in the Marines. A little too relaxed for me. And so I ended up going to MOTS, which is Marine Air Weapons Tactics Squadron. And they were just always gone doing missions and stuff, like training. And so there was like this one guy, I can't remember, Hoffman, I think his name was. Really nice guy. And they just, like, I'm there to augment because there's no one else there for him, and I just started doing inventory there, and I found things, I was like, keep him busy, pulled my car and worked on my car a little bit on the weekends, but yeah, I did really good there too. He's a really, really good, and he was getting ready to get out, so it was kind of weird to hear him talking about like jobs he was applying for and stuff, and I thought it sounded so weird, they sounded so corporate compared to like the military. And there was a part of me that felt sad for him, and then there was a part of me like, that's going to be me in a few months or next month. I'm kind of more in the moment maybe. And I was going to school, so my intention was to stay in school. And then I joined the Guard, so I got out of the Marines, lots of awards, have it all. My DD-214 for both that and the Army. In the Army, I was a assistant gunner for a 155 millimeter self-propelled howitzer 30s. I don't even know what the friggin', I know my MOS in the military, I don't know, it's like 31 Bravo. I could be totally wrong. Never did that. Went to school for it in Utah, and then ended up on Luke Air Force Base as military police, but they call them security forces. So I was a military cop for 2 years at Luke Air Force Base as well, where I learned a lot of things, and I excelled at everything. And they were just like, you got to come over to the Air Force when you're out, because I get 100 on my tests. No joke, I have it. And the reason is, everyone should be able to get 100, unless you have a learning disability. Because they have these computers, and I work nights. I'll always work nights if I can work nights in that environment, because you have less brass, less people like poking their nose at you and stuff like that, which I had to deal with some brass, and I always dealt with it right. And they were just blown away because they're like, what do we do? And just like, well, you're wrong. So, especially during tactics and things like that, you got a lot of boots, boot lieutenants who think they know it all, and because they're an officer and you're enlisted, they think, well, how dare you correct me? And I'm fine to go to battle with you if I know I'm right. I'm not going to even create a situation if I don't even know I'm right. If I know I'm right, yeah, let's go. And every time I won. Try to, yeah, anyway, that's a different story. But I worked there for 2 years, and I get 100 on my test, and they just have a computer set up, and they go through the actual questions on the test questions, and you would just go through it, and you would learn, and then eventually it's just like, yeah, you know, all these very specific, or, you know, and you can use your brain and say, okay, they might word it differently. And so they gave you the tools to be successful. The military really is the easiest job, in a sense that they are so organized, and your map for success is very clear. You get it. And I had a very good mentor when I got into SOTG, Corporal Savenko, and may rest in peace. Sorry. Wasn't expecting that. But he set me up and just led me on a really good path, because I really didn't know there was a path. I just thought it would all kind of be, you know. And I did all my MCIs, did well on my PT and stuff. He goes, you know, and boom. I'd already been meritoriously promoted once before I even got there. And then I got PFC to, no, did I get private to PFC? No, that's just time and service. So PFC to Lance Corporal. Oh no, I got them both there. I got a board there. So he just told me how to do everything. So then I go to a board. I win this week-long board, and during the board, you have a time when you're in front of all the superiors. They're all by yourself, sitting in this chair, looking at all these people, and they're asking you, just not bombing you with questions, but they're all asking questions. They all ask a question. It could be uniform, you know, could be history, could be, you know, policy, standards, general orders, you know, Marine quarters, whatever it is. So, and so you're studying all this stuff, and I have all the books somewhere. And that's what you do when you're not actually at work. And at work for us we wore shorts and t-shirts and tennis shoes and played with boats. So work wasn't stressful. Work was awesome. I was never a fan of running, though. I'm not a big running fan, but I'm decent at it. If I have to be. Not anymore. So, and then, so that's the final day. Then you have a day of presentation where you have to give you get given a topic, and then you have to, like, give a speech, and it has to be 5 minutes long. And if you start losing points if you're like over 15 seconds longer, or if you're like at 4:40, so you start losing points, but you have a 30-second kind of window of like perfectness as far as time goes. And then there's presentation and the way you conduct yourself and the way you look, you know, all these things. And so when I did that one, I was fortunate that those two people for that particular part knew me. But they were like, that's the best one we've ever seen. And I'm like, thank you. I mean, I've been working on it with my roommate and stuff like that. And just, you know, I knew my timing perfectly. And it just shows that if you practice and you put the effort in, you will get the results, but you have to put the effort in. And I haven't always done that. But if I do that, I get the results. So, you know, I know that when I put in the full effort, I get the results, and it feels really good. So then another was drill. You have to drill everybody in marching, you know. And then there's PT tests, and then there's several uniform inspections and these other things. So yeah, so I won that. That was a base-wide competition. Someone nominated me from the head shed because they were squared away. I got to meet the colonel when I got there. He really liked me, and the first thing he did, he's like, we just talked, and he goes, he just talked to you? And they're like, yeah, he just sat me down and talked to me like I was his friend for like an hour. And that was when I checked in, because I was older, right? I was 26 years old. So he's like, what are you doing in the Marines? Why do you got that kind of haircut? And I said, well, I'm already going bald, so that's why I got short hair. And then he's rubbing a 5.56 on his face the whole time, and with a, you know, full round. And he's like, how'd you like to go to Hong Kong? I'm like, I would love to go to Hong Kong, sir. And he goes, done. And to me, that was awesome, right? But that pissed a lot of people off, because there's been people there for years that don't get to go on these cool trips, right? And we were going on a Navy ship, and I got pretty wasted in Hong Kong. I probably have never been that drunk. And that's another story. But yeah, so then I came back, and then went home on leave one time, came back and say, hey, they put you on a board. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I got ready for the board. I spent a lot of time preparing everything, knowledge, my presentation, my fitness, my uniforms, everything, just ironing, polishing, just measuring, everything, just everything you got to do as a Marine, right? Just to like wow them. And every morning you got to shave your head because they don't want to even feel any scruff. They put their finger like that, right? This would be, my forehead would be too long right now. And they say if your fingernails ain't bleeding, they're too long, kind of thing. So it's like you're just constantly like, it's awesome though. It's like it's a competition. And they do it. They come into your room, they inspect all your clothes and stuff like that, and you have to have everything labeled in a certain way. And they're just like, okay, and they're sergeants, because back then I hadn't won Lance Corporal yet, so I'm just a PFC, and they go, hey, get PFC, me to help people, even sergeants and stuff, because I'm so squared away. All I did, here's a secret. If anyone out there in the military listening to this, and you're in the Marines, and no one's told you this yet, and they should have, by the time you left boot camp, you should have had this information, because that boot camp stuff is probably the best squared away stuff you'll ever have, the stuff you save for inspection. Just keep that stuff in Ziploc bags. Keep it in Ziploc bags. Come inspection time, boop, 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 all done. All you gotta do is make your rack, polish your boots. So that was my secret. I still have it in Ziploc bags somewhere, I think. So it's crazy. Tidy whities with the little, my JC Smith or Smith JC. So camis. Anyway, so I say so a lot because I'm filling in, because this is unrehearsed, and I need some water. But I think that's it. I don't really know where I was going with that, with the whole inspection thing, but it's just part of Marine life, and part of what I do is paying attention to detail, succeeding in everything. That's what I was talking about. I got Hyatt Employee of the Month twice. That was actually my second job here. The first job I got was at the Fairmont Princess. Back then I would think it was just the Scottsdale Princess. And then now the Hyatt now is called the Grand Hyatt. It used to be Scottsdale Guinea Ranch. Got Employee of the Month there twice. And then Dean's List ASU, Dean's List at Scottsdale Community College. I don't think I got Dean's List while I was at Arizona Western College, because I was still in the Marines, and it was tech that I wasn't familiar with at the time, so I wasn't really doing that well, because I didn't have a computer. They were using Macs, and I had a PC, so I could only learn at school during class time, so because I couldn't stay there. So that's the only time I didn't get on the Dean's List. Honor roll at high school, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Mount Royal, class of '89. So that's who I am. I will cut this up into 6 sections, and you don't need to know that, because but that's what I'm going to do. If you've made it this whole time, maybe I'll post one long version. I hope you subscribe. Anyway, I thank you, because hopefully like I said before, hopefully something resonated with somebody, and get an email and says, hey, I got some work for you. How'd you like to collaborate? But I don't want to do any for credit stuff. I still got bills to pay. I don't want to you'll get your name on the, I mean, there'll come a time when maybe there's something like that, but then the person who's talking to me has to have some clout. I have a million ideas. That's one of my things, is my mind does race. It just can't. But if I have a goal and I write it down and that's my goal, then boom, 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 I'm good. But if I'm just kind of like free ranging, it's just like boop, 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 boop. I'm all over the place, which is fun sometimes. But my wife says, you're like living with Robin Williams. It's like a sitcom with you. It's like, she's like, I'm going to get you a card for Valentine's. And I just went, shit. And then she started laughing. And I was just like, it's, but there was a tone and something of this, so it was kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, so thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I hope to get at least one email that doesn't say, you're an idiot. I'll probably get a few of those, but oh well, that's okay. That's what you get for putting yourself out there. And if you don't put yourself out there, you're going to not get much in return. So I'm putting myself out there because I put myself out there like on resumes and stuff. But again, that doesn't say much. And then if you get an interview, And then you got to dress up and play that monkey, that game. Like, ooh, what do you want me to say? Parrot game. And monkey that, whatever. I just want to be honest, transparent. But any company that I would choose to work for, I would be there sincerely. Like, there would be no reason to waste my time on this earth, you know? And I'm sure that I would have to sacrifice some time with my daughter in the future because of a job. But she's so busy now, and she has really, really great friends. So I don't really think I play that same role anymore, which is sad. But that's life too, right? We you know, a lot of firsts, you know, is having your baby and then kind of letting them go. And the first time you really do it, anyway, I could talk about some first, but yeah, so I just have more time. So I understand I'm dedicated, willing, smart, adaptable, open-minded, and I like to treat everybody the way they treat me. You know, like you could look at me and you could say, oh, he leans that way and that way. If you meet me, kind of more of I have no desire to offend you, and if conversation kind of goes a certain way, I just kind of like don't get involved. Not really. That's not an energy of debate that I'm not really interested in. Um, Especially in real life, like it's such a negative, sad energy when people want to argue about things that they really don't have a lot of control over. But what we do have control over is how we react and how we treat others. And sometimes treating others just with silence is the best thing. You know, we don't need to necessarily say what's on our mind. That's not always productive. Although it may be fun and it may feed a certain energy that you feel it is like, but it's not fruitful, you know. And I want to do things that give me fruit. You know, that's what I'm looking for in life. I want to add color to my palette, color to my experience of life. I want to learn new things, and who knows, maybe it's something that I do for a long, long, long time because life is different now, or, you know, it serves a purpose for both individuals or both parties, and then that time passes. You know, that's the way I think. Nothing's permanent. So when I started a company, he's like, I hope that person wouldn't think, are you going to be here forever, right? You know, I was like, well, I'm not even going to be here forever, let alone here forever. So, so there goes sew again. Maybe I should learn to sew. Probably make some cool designs. Anyway, thanks for watching.